Alright, so we're still basically doing just a little bit of setup. Okay. Interesting. Alright, welcome everybody. Hope we're having a fantastic time. We did restart the room, and because it's a stage, it's acting a little strangely, but we'll get to the bottom of this. Not a problem. Alright, so welcome everybody. My name is Jason. I will be joined by Ruben in just a moment. And we'll be going over some of the new balance and design changes that we will have happening in Infinity Wars Classic. Now, if I've set this up correctly, I also have GIFs of all of the cards that we will be talking about specifically on hand. However, there might be one or two cards that we don't have that for. I'm not 100% sure. And also, because I've got a slightly outdated one, some of them will also be a little bit broken. So, for example, I know giving them a jetpack, I'm pretty sure this, yeah, a little bit broken as you can see. That's just the animation. You don't need to worry too much about that. This is just for people who are watching the live stream and for people watching the VOD as well. Alright, when Ruben gets here, we can go ahead and start. Alright, just quickly going to test out this feature here for the stage thing. So I am joined by What If Red as well. Welcome, man.
Hello.
Cool, cool. So at least the inviting people to speak thing works nicely. Easy. So if I do that... There we go.
Hello, welcome. Okay, are we good to go?
Yep, live stream's going on. I've got all the GIFs and stuff ready so I can make some interesting visuals and stuff. If you'd like to lead the discussion, you go for it. And if anyone watching the Twitch stream wants to join in the Discord chat and actually say something in voice, you will be free to do that. We are in the IWC stage area in the Infinity Wars Classic Discord. Go for it, Ruben.
Excellent. So, yeah, this is our second kind of balance and design discussion meeting. Thanks everyone who is going to join us today or is listening later. Yeah, we had a really good turnout for the previous one, so thank you everyone for that. Yeah, so obviously at the moment we have it's been not quite a month since our last patch, so the next patch will have quite a lot of new features, but also we're going to be putting time into balance and bug testing, bug fixing elements. While there was a lot of we're seeing a lot of positive feedback on the most recent balance changes. There's definitely been some bugs that have cropped up, which we're looking to squash. But I'm going to be going over quite a few different, both minor and slightly more significant balance changes which we're considering. None of these are final. We want to kind of talk to the community about them, and the overall goal of a lot of these is to rather than like kind of nerfing the most powerful cards, it's just some of the cards that are either a touch too restrictive or were so terrible they never saw any play. We're looking at just kind of giving them a role somewhere, because we overall want to have the deck building experience, right, be more enjoyable, to have enough options to play different purities in different ways and make different combinations, not necessarily tier 1 viable, but like at least there are certainly some strategies which are just like they're traps, right, essentially. So they look like they have the support. They might have a couple of cards that have the support, but then they have things that either are really poorly balanced or just are have purity issues or other things that kind of make them look like a real strategy, but they're not really actually able to be built, even as like a tier 3 or 4 deck. So basically we're just raising the floor on some of the cards, on some of the worst cards in the game. We're not looking at any major balance changes to any to any of the kind of top cards at this stage. But please, if you have any cards that you are very concerned about, put them in the balance and suggestions chat or mention them here, and we can get to them. As we're always receptive to feedback. So I'll just pull up my list. Hold on a moment.
I'm assuming it's unchanged from the list that you sent me?
Yes. Well, these are the kind of most major ones. There's a bunch of like super small ones which I actually posted as a little quickfire list in the balance channel a couple of days ago. I'll actually just relink that in case anyone wants to take a super quick look over that. Go copy link address. So these were some kind of quick fire, more minor, often more minor changes. I'm happy to go over any of those in more detail if people are wondering kind of why we might be making these changes. But I'll be talking about some kind of more cards that are getting more redesigned rather than just having number changes. So let's quickly let's talk about firstly, I guess, a couple of cards that are just didn't previously see any play. This was Purge the Unworthy and Altar of Binding. Are both, which I'll post their old versions in a moment.
I've got them on the stream as well.
Oh, awesome.
What was the second one? Altar of Binding?
Yeah, Altar of Binding and Purge the Unworthy. So, mission cards are an interesting space because they're these build around cards. They have these kind of deck building challenges a lot of the time, which often are very exciting to a particular group of players, but you have to also be careful because they're very hard to interact with currently, deliberately so, and the rewards for them are sometimes very either not synergistic with kind of what the rest of the deck wants to do in the case of Purge the Unworthy, or just not powerful enough. And so we have been, been looking over all the mission cards. Not all. We think some of them are in good spots, and some of them are not. Are kind of a bit weak, but they kind of work within their archetype, at least for lower tier decks. But one that really stood out to us is Purge the Unworthy, which has this interesting kind of remove from the game theme, which can be it can be activated by either like removing cards from graveyards, by flickering, and a bunch of different ways for Overseers of Solace to activate this. But then the reward was 20 life. It was it didn't really help you on board when you're already probably durdling around with removing cards from the game in a way that often slows down your progression on the board. So we wanted to make the reward for this both fit kind of what the deck wants to do more, and also be a lot more impactful. So I will post the rework that we're looking at. It's all numbers, etc. Subject to change. So this essentially each time you play a card, each time a card in play or the graveyard is removed from the game, it comes 13% more complete. So we've made it increase a bit slower. But then once it's 100% complete, whenever your opponent deploys a character, it becomes exhausted for an additional turn. And so this both generates a large amount of tempo play, really disrupting, a lot of cards. It's a powerful effect. However, this costs 6 mana, and then you have to achieve the mission. So it comes out quite late in the game. And then the reason we chose this effect specifically for this archetype is it works really nicely with flickers and stuff, because you flicker their stuff and it becomes exhausted for even longer when it comes back. We are looking at and also just generally, like, if you're durdling around with flicker, you're sometimes not being super aggressive. We want to place. We want to playtest this. Yes, 13% means you have to do the effect 8 times. That's correct. Still, this is quite a large redesign, but also, we looked at other options, like creating a big token that had an enter the battlefield, when it's deployed effect. That meant if you kept flickering it, you kept getting more of that bonus. But the problem with that is, unfortunately, the art and the name is something we're not willing to change at this stage, and so obviously more of a negative thing. So we ended up going with this effect that kind of is a punishment on your opponents, rather than giving you like a big token or some other thing. As well as there are other missions that create big tokens. We'd be stepping on similar space. So this is probably the biggest rework of the ones I'll be showcasing today. But yes, it takes Purge the Unworthy from a kind of trap build around card to, something that comes out quite late, but is very powerful if you can enable it.
So, as a quick reference here as well, there is a number of cards in specifically the Overseer's decks that allow you to flicker. However, it is going to be very difficult to find that many flicker effects reliably after turn 6, given that you've probably used a bunch already that weren't replayable. We are going to be seeing more flicker effects and cards coming to Overseers of Souls in the next couple of sets, correct?
Yes, and then also it's worth mentioning that, like, graveyard removal is something that Overseers also have access to that can be used with this.
Right.
And there are a number of there are a number of other tools in other factions depending on how you want to build the deck. Yeah, so I mean, some of the biggest ways to turbo it out is actually more through removing graveyards. But like a lot of the mass graveyard removal is often higher purity, so it doesn't quite work.
All right, fantastic.
And yes, Grave Rob is a factionless, a factionless option that's always available. Yeah, I mean, that is one thing of, like, if we find that something, Mew brought up that, like, Grave Rob might just be the only way you ever activate this, the turbo activator. If that is a problem, we could always make it removed from, deployed zone, or removed from, in play. If we do want to just keep a focus on the flicker effects. Because the graveyard synergies are pretty clunky in comparison. But I mean, if Grave Rob isn't necessarily good in all decks, so like if people want to be kind of using that to turbo it out, like that will also be enjoyable for some people rather than
the play pattern I do see happening with Purge the Unworthy in this state would be a fairly defensive Overseers of Solence deck that plays Purge the Unworthy on turn 6, then double Grave Robs, and then they have the mission and they win.
Yeah,
and if you do natural Overseers of Solence deck where you just have Box, the new Azula, maybe someone's called controlled temporal anomalies, if you splash GI, you're never going to stack it up because the percentage has to be so low because of those graveyard synergies, like Soldier of Purity, Grave Rob.
So yeah, well, this is where internal testing of basically it's pretty quick for us to make the card and make that deck essentially and see how backbreaking that is on turn 7, because you'd need to both have this ready on turn 6 and the 2 Grave Robs, and that's putting you're essentially paying 3 cards for the effect, and it's still not coming out till turn 7, and it's whether it's as backbreaking as if you're already behind on board, it doesn't do anything. It's only for future plays that it affects. So it's certainly a powerful effect, but it is only delaying, even if it's delaying a lot.
I do have one quick question though. By the way that the text is worded, it mentions whenever a character is deployed. Does this mean that if someone plays a card with charge, it is then exhausted?
That's correct. So, but only for 1 turn rather than 2.
So it instantly just shuts down all charge and vigilance at the same time. That's pretty... That's real oppressive.
A charged character actually is not unexhausted. They come in fatigued. They just are in the assault zone. A charged and vigilant creature would actually be delayed 2 turns, as per the wording on this text.
I don't actually believe...
That's why you can't activate activated abilities with charged creatures, Ruben. Because they're not actually not summoning sick, they're just in the assault zone. They're not exhausted, but
and before you
creatures don't actually deploy.
That code works as it's supposed to. Mew's right, and it all works fine.
So something with charge and an activated ability would stay in the assault zone, attack, and on the second turn still be unable to use its ability.
No, when you
No,
played the
no.
charge unit, you would try to activate the ability and it would be grayed out because I reported that bug like 400 bugs ago.
Well, it's not a bug though. Charge
Well, it
units
was when
just-
they could activate it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. If they could activate it, that is a bug, but they shouldn't be able to because they are not. They are technically still summoning signal. It is not the same as haste.
Yeah, I mean, we'll. Yeah, it could be. I don't. I'll have to double check out how it's working in the code and backends, but whether it's just that we've got a restriction on the activated abilities, or if we actually exhaust them. Because I believe the way, because exhaust moves you to the support zone, so there's like a bit of a weirdness there. Anyway, that's more backend stuff. But yeah, like the intention when I made the design was that it would only get moved for one turn. That's why that's the additional turn. But I mean, yeah, that could be changed to cards become exhausted the next turn or whatever, so that you get one attack with your charge character, and then it exhausts next turn and moves to the support zone. And then works the same with characters that don't have charge or haste. But yes, the like grave rob scenario is definitely like the biggest thing to take a look at how backbreaking turbo grave rob or turbo graveyard removal that can be activated consistently on turn 7. But I'm not like basically it's a lot of work and to do that, and so whether that work is actually end up worth the effect versus other things
You can grave rob your own yard, so you could have its assistant turn 5 realistically get your 10 tokens killed, which is not that hard to do, and then clean them out with the grave robs turn 7.
Yeah, but you're still behind on it. You're still putting a lot of card advantage down, right? While also it's coming out not super late game, but it's at least at the 6 cost and then coming out turn 7 the earliest. It's it is still a significant investment compared to say like if this effect was on like a character card that just cost 8 or something, that would be much more backbreaking because you wouldn't have to put in all the both deck building and cards. But yeah, as I said, the backup of that is potentially removing the graveyard elements and making it more just about flicker, and then probably making it slightly easier to complete.
I honestly think that'd be a much better card at that point, because Overseers of Song, you could even lower the cost maybe to like say 4 or 5, and then just have it be a generous scaling actually. So that way Overseers naturally would complete it over the course of the game, maybe turn 12, 13, and it would just be a very passive value play still.
Yeah, because like we want a lot of people really enjoy how clever they can feel with the flicker effects, and so that's definitely something we want to make more build arounds and enablers for.
It's either going to be a total build around where you just backbreak someone with double grave rob turn 7s, or it will be a dead card still. And neither of those I think are healthy scenarios. Like nobody wants to deal with another counting the days. Oh, I lost the game because I couldn't interact with the mission and stop it. And nobody wants you to spend all this effort modifying
counting
the card.
the days is not something we're really interested in buffing. But yes, because missions are so difficult to interact with at this stage. Anyway, let's move on to the other card I mentioned was Altar of Binding. So I think I'm pretty sure Altar of Binding was given to me on the list of like most useless cardboard in the game along with a couple other different cards by Merlin and some of the other council members way back when. So it's been a card I had my eye on for a while. Did you have that up on stream now?
Yes, it is. I will need you to
Yeah.
send through the new version of the text so I can update that too.
Yeah, so essentially, we're looking at potentially changing Altar of Binding to, some sort of, larger, larger, more impactful effect.
Like a playable card.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't even. Yeah, so. I mean, not necessarily looking for something tier 1, but this is this is one possible design that I've been looking at, which is a essentially double Varroa Kidnapper as an artifact, which would fit with the art, and would provide, like, COV has a lot of single target removal, but they have a bunch of mass removal, but they don't really have like hit 2 things removal. So this would kind of be a just another deck building option if that's if you're especially wanting to hit like commanders in the late game, or big single threats that might be hard to hit with a mass def or def ray or some of their other tools. And it creates a bit of a possible way to get them back, as they would you can destroy the artifact. There will be unbound. So Captain Obvious is mentioning one thing, word of command and altar. Do you?
So essentially,
Not sure
what
exactly.
he means is if it also moved, like you picked if they went to the support, defense, or like support, defense, or assault zone, and then they were frozen there. Like it was also word of command, the card that lets you move a unit to a zone of your choice.
That ain't that bad. Also, I did just throw Varroa Kidnapper on the stream just for frame of reference, because it's probably the closest thing that COV has to the effect that we're pitching, so it's good to have it there for reference.
Yeah, so I mean, so I guess like the word of command is in a bit of an interesting spot because it's a very powerful tool for COV, but that it's it's also kind of one that's being used in a lot of similar ways to other factions. It's kind of how much should COV have the kind of movement elements is something that's still kind of to be worked out. Word of command is literally their only card, if I remember, that does force move. Demon of Fear. It's exhausted. Yeah. Leave it pinned there. So I mean you rather than removing the card from the game, you could pin the enemy in the support zone, which then wouldn't affect. Jason, you okay? Yeah, so if you did make it a forced move and then pin it there, it would create a similar type of effect, though obviously wouldn't be able to get rid of their passive abilities. Not sure how much that's something that COV needs as much, because compared to a expensive way to hit command zones or other areas where you might not normally be able to hit. I'm overall we're looking to change it to some sort of removal spell that doesn't overlap too much with any of their existing removal, and still remain an artifact. Happy to hear about other alternatives for sure.
I think that if the version that we've pitched here doesn't really feel right, or it just doesn't feel relevant, then I definitely want to explore Admiral Obvious's idea of making it, you choose a zone to bind it to and then leave it at that, because that might be potentially pretty fun regarding what COV wants to do. So I want to explore both those ideas eventually.
Yeah, it just has to end up a lot cheaper, which kind of runs into why don't you just death ring it a lot of the time.
I mean, the basic idea is that if you keep it at 3 cost, you can run that instead of Death Ray and just lock things into the support zone. So if you don't draw Death Ray and you draw this instead, you've at least got another way to stifle their aggression or their defenses or whatever, which is exactly what COV wants. So it's not that bad.
Yeah, just the series is very crowded at their loaded mid drop.
It does also have a few nice synergies over Death Ray at that point, because you could combine it with things like Sinister Corruption to punish them fairly badly.
No, yeah, as in think some of the COV stuff that actually wants to keep the card there.
I think Corrupting Magics is another good one. If you just lock something into the support zone and now it's doing 1 damage to your opponent every time.
One damage a turn is pretty small.
But at the same time, if you lock their big
maybe
dude
it's
down...
like,
Humble, where you're trying to kill things that either don't die or going to reoccur, and you don't want to actually kill them. Like splitter bots, or that's kind of a bad example, but you get the general idea.
Well, it's not a bad example, because you don't want Splitter Bot to die, really, unless you're going for morale.
But yeah, I mean, basically the overall thing that we're looking to change it to is from this like super niche unplayable artifact to some sort of artifact with which fills a removal hole that isn't currently supported by their current toolset.
You could bring it in at forecast, honestly, if it locked target creature to the support zone. Because at that point it wouldn't miss, and it would be a fair bit stronger than an actual death ray.
Yeah, I think it fills a nice gap between Death Ray and Kidnapper in terms of like removals. It's actually not terrible.
Yeah, just to get.
I also think the cost 8 just removed 2 is kind of okay. So.
Yeah, I guess the cheap thing that the cheaper version doesn't necessarily do is it's yet another single target thing. But I do like the possible synergies and stuff like Sinister Corruption. But yeah, I'll keep going for now. I'll just write down some of these other suggestions though.
On the cost one, do you want a big, wide-hitting, ignoring protection removal spell? Is that something you want? It's not as bad as Expropriate, admittedly, but
yes,
it's a similar type of spell, and it's quite wide application.
Yeah, so I mean, the fact that it has essentially a inbuilt, if they can remove a artifact, has a safety valve, is certainly something that makes it a lot safer than Extirpate, as well as being locked to a specific faction, which is kind of already the king of removal. So yeah, let's talk about. I think I mentioned this one. I don't remember if I mentioned this one last time. So, Masked Warrior is. Masked Warrior is a D&D card, which currently it just has in its deployed area, they lose 4 morale. It's got very low stats, and so just looking at some ways that DoD can, essentially if they've already locked down the board, or if they have something, they think they have enough defenses, you can kind of try to sneak in a bit of extra morale damage if you want to attack with this, or you can just use it as just its deployment effect by adding 8 war attacks and a slight stat buff. Because DoD does have some attacking morale cards that are like the flyer, 6 flyer.
Spirit of the Serpent.
Spirit of the Serpent, that's it, thank you. And so this would kind of be in the similar vein of like, if you're wanting to, be slightly more on the kind of aggressive morale side. And also this means you can trigger it on turns that you're potentially playing, like
Lingbo's Will.
Yeah, to get some additional morale chip in. Not a huge change, but we think this will make it play a bit more dynamically. As we're looking to have DoD kind of, be able to play some decent defensive bodies like it should, but also still kind of be going for that long game, either by morale or large kind of dragon avatars, dragons, those type of things. Once you've stabilized on the ground. Okay, I'll go next one if there's. Talking of Mast, so Mast Initiate has been a card we've constantly been asked to change. There are a couple of different directions we're been looking at.
You're gonna finally nerf him, eh? He deserves it.
Yeah, finally nerf him.
You can't keep getting away with this.
Basically, there's about 3 different directions we've been looking at. There's like, could we make it some sort of, demon tribal support? Just to help out the kind of exile COV demon tribal. Did we want to make it some sort of abilities matter card? Probably not something that scales as much as some of the current options like Aether Adept, but rather is more like a one-shot kind of bursty type thing. So maybe something like this. Or did we want it to have some sort of like graveyard synergies for like COV slivers, or maybe we're not sure whether we want to give Cult of Aurora self-mill at the moment. So that's but whether we want to have a little bit more recursion in their tool set, such as like put a card from your graveyard on top of your deck, so it's not card advantage, but it is able to get things back. But we're kind of concerned that about things like mass death loops, etc. So whether we want some sort of limiter on that, so it can get back some cheaper things, etc. But essentially, let me see if I can find the demon version. But we've also had suggestions of giving it the demon subtype, which is a little bit of a stretch. Like, it is masked, so we could like potentially be like, oh yeah, behind its mask is a demon. But it's something we're currently looking at, but haven't finalized any particular design. So if you'd have, if there are any Cult of Aurora faction combinations that you feel could use a little bit more love, that basically it's a this is kind of a free slot to potentially help support anything that needs further support.
So I'm looking at this new version of Master Initiate, and I'm instantly thinking about how this would slot really well into specifically Tinkerside type decks with COV and Genesis. Getting those
probably wouldn't actually make the cut. It's pretty mediocre of a reward. Pen attack at 2 cost isn't super high. And that's already where all your Aether Acolytes are, and you're playing 5 of them, so you're not in a huge need of extras. It would probably be crowded out, honestly.
And I think Dick Blast ditches it too, because like it doesn't charge. So what do we care?
Right. Fair.
Now that's still fine, probably. I mean, the fact that it's not going into any of the S tier decks. I mean, we didn't want Masked Initiate to go there. We just wanted him not to look so ridiculously terrible. So it's probably fine.
It is a notable improvement while still not breaking the game. That's good enough.
Oh, absolutely.
That's good enough for us.
Yeah.
I do
And
wanna
also,
quickly
like,
revisit,
it is worth, having, even if it's going to get crowded out and constructed, it's, worth thinking ahead to when we get drafted, etc. This would, be like, oh, okay, well, I haven't found enough Aether Acolytes, maybe I could pick up 1 or 2 of these if I'm going for some sort of skulls deck.
Absolutely. That type of redundancy is very nice for draft. It's a big part of why Ashes to Ashes and Dust to Dust were a pretty big buff for COV in draft, actually. They're terrible constructed cards, but in draft, they're quite good.
Yeah.
So I want to go back quickly to Masked Warrior. Because I do really like the new effect. I'm not 100% sure if I agree with the stat change. I feel like if it's a card that's specifically attacking the morale, it doesn't necessarily need a higher attack stat, but I'm not that upset by it. I just don't think
in the situation that you just play it and you need to put it in defensively, it's not embarrassing like it currently is.
With Gao-Han being nerfed pretty heavily and DoD's early tempo suffering as a whole, having some more high quality early drops to try and compensate for that massive loss of early tempos, kind of nice.
Yeah, but basically been looking to
talking about a stat line that's the same as the Masked Initiate we're mocking right below it. So it's not like it's a big, great body that's gonna carry Dodd,
I think the initial time I pitched it, I was like, oh yeah, we'll go ham and make it a 6/7 or whatever, and it was like, yeah, it's probably a little too much, but we are definitely, wanting to, wanting to spread out kind of DoD's, early game defensive tempo on the ground, because they were relying really, really heavily on Gahan, and so when Gahan got hit, it's been a bit sad. Don't want to, not really looking to revert that change, but want to kind of raise up everything, raise up a bunch of other stuff around it.
I would like to say that does homogenize the factions a lot, because when you're so dependent on Gaohan, it becomes the faction playstyle, which is quite distinct from everyone else because they were so front-loaded on tempo, as opposed to just playing relatively on-curve creatures, similar to what everyone does.
Yeah, it's also partly responsible for why decks like Tinkerside and Death Blast just became so meta, because it's we can at least build tempo or deal damage around Gohan, whereas everything else is just we got outcurved. Look at him.
Well, Tinkerside was just the fastest deck in the game before Death Blast. COV's tempo tools have been ludicrous, frankly.
Yeah, and the fact that it's so much for this, direct fortress burn that can be.
Well, Death Blast is just better than Tinkerside. You can burn someone down from full health in Death Blast with your burn package, even if you don't get in, and Death Blast will get in because it's a 2B flamed on deck.
Yeah, Death Blast is something we've got an eye on. It's a card.
It funnily enough has not been the meta deck for most of the time I've been playing IWC, because there's always been a flavor of the nth deck.
And I mean some of those burn strategies, we are currently the kind of healing tools in IWC are kind of terrible.
That's not true, actually. Repair's been quite good in the past. The Fortress of Xingzao's been pretty good.
I like Fortress. Yeah.
Siphon Structure's extremely meta.
Definitely.
Like, most of the healing spells are
And
actually
the new soul
quite
is
powerful.
amazing.
The new one.
The
Oh,
soul,
yes.
set your health to 50.
Yes, that card is quite. Well, yeah.
Adaptive Drone was quite playable. It was actually the most popular commander for value bots for
I
the Overseers of
sideboarded
Salt
them
and
for
Purity.
Flame Dawn.
Adaptive Drone?
Yeah, almost all of the
You
cards
mean,
of Act have been viable in
Oh,
high
no,
level
it's
play.
Adaptive Drone.
Like, a lot of people look at Repair and think, oh yeah, that's awful. Why would I play that instead of the Fortress of... And the fact of the matter is, a game does not go that long normally. A Repair will heal a comparable amount of Fortress without eating your location slot.
Yep. Where were we up to? So, yeah, so Master Initiate, Master Warrior. So, no, not preemptive. That's not right. Suppress. Here we go. I was getting very confused because I called the card preemptive. No, the card has preemptive. Yeah, so suppress is a card we could change to have a bit less. As in to make it worth a card, or and have a little bit less overlap with Humble, with the currently pretty small card pool. It is 1 purity, so we don't want to make it too strong. Like Humble is an absolutely crazy card. That's will remain 2 purity. Yes, so we don't want to make a 1 purity Humble, but Suppress is definitely a slot that could have some changes. So one is to kind of make it much more about the activated abilities so that you don't have to guess the target by countering all activated abilities that turn. I'm not sure how much this would be used, but at least it would be a tool against specific decks. I'd be interested in kind of seeing how much there isn't a lot of activated ability hate at the moment, so how much is that a tool that would be interesting.
I think you could buff this effect to the counter all enemy activated abilities, and it would still probably never see play. Some deck might sideboard it if some other meta deck became a problem, but yeah, it definitely needs it. That real obvious. Like Suppress as it is never played ever.
Yes.
It's pretty sad.
Yeah, so this is a strict upgrade on the current Suppress because it targets everything, and it still might not see play. But it's at least, it's like, okay, bring this in when your opponent has multiple activated abilities that they're locking in one turn, or I guess they have one really expensive activated ability that you're looking to negate. Notably, this would allow it to hit locations and artifacts, whether that's that useful though.
There's a couple of meaningful things that lets you hit, like Omnimind and Hermit decks. You could walk out for potentially an entire turn. But it's still a pretty niche tool at that point.
Yeah.
Well, and GI's historically a pretty bad matchup for DoD decks, so even with the new tool against Omnimind, they'd likely still just be smashed down.
Also, just another idea that I've just come up with off the top of my head here. basically the same thing, except it specifies characters, so it doesn't work against locations and artifacts. But it also has the bonus effect that for each ability cancelled, your opponent loses 2 morale. So that way, if they are playing an activation-heavy deck, and you are playing DoD, you probably care about their morale going down. This is just a little bit of extra incentive.
Just what I guess that's it's going to be much more common for there to be like a single expensive, Omni-Mind or something activation.
I personally would rather, if you said you got to run one in your deck, I'd rather be able to counter Omni-Mind occasionally than do a tiny bit of morale chip occasionally.
Yeah, I guess because there's not really any decks currently that are like, hey, I'm activating like 4 different activated abilities in one turn.
But once again, Omni-Mind will occasionally spend their entire turn's mana on Omni-Mind and an Alita Tinker activation, but that's probably the most extreme example. And followed probably by Define Hermit, who might spend 5 or 6 on activated abilities in a turn if they pump Alita, Caretaker, and Hermit.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, basically if it's a, if it goes from absolutely unplayable to, one purity niche sideboard card, that's probably fine enough. But we could look at it again if there's any, other buffs that it wants. Yeah.
Have you considered putting it cantrip?
Yeah, it could. Yeah, so we were looking to add a cantrip to Honorable Farewell, which is the one cost a target character's morale is reduced to 0. So yeah, we don't necessarily want to add cantrips to everything, but that certainly would make the card a lot better. The other option is potentially making it like it's some sort of modal element where it's like counter all activated abilities this turn, or prevent all activated abilities of a single card but permanently. Or whether that, which does make it closer to humble, but because yes. So yeah, I mean, if you use that on a monk or something, right? That's sorry, on Define Hermit. That's like, oh well, basically he's dead because his whole thing is his ability. If this was multi-faction, you'd be like, oh, if it activated an ability, kill it. COV DoD card or whatever. But no, I'm not looking to change the purity of the card at this stage. I'll add the potential to cantrip as an option in our list. Because one of the good things, is that if we have 4 different variants of a card, it's very quick for us to test all 4 variants. If they're pretty similar in their effect, just with different numbers or minor bonuses. Yeah. Okay, Admiral. Obviously, you're thinking of humble. Yeah, humble is much more powerful. Does not need a change at this stage. I guess let's I had the last one was Dancer of Jinhai, which I had chats with about in this channel I think a couple of weeks ago. So essentially Dancer's current design is pretty awkward in how it's really hard to attack with a you're paying 2 mana, 2 resources, and then it's like, okay, well, my 10-2 will will kind of just die to the faintest. Sorry, 10-4 will die to the tiniest thing, and so if you are paying that much, gating flying is kind of the least you could do, just temporarily, so that it can kind of oscillate between attacking and defending. I don't think this card's going to, be busted at all, but at least is kind of an option if you want to, push through evasive damage.
Also, ignore the animation being broken on the stream. It's been fixed in the actual game. I just haven't gotten a new round of gifts yet.
Yeah, Old Dancer very much fit the description of things that look like you could build a deck with them or around them and bait noobs into using them, but never work.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually slightly worse with Tech Knight. I remember back in the original Infinity Wars, I tried really hard to make a Dancer deck work because that full heal really called to me, and I thought, oh yeah, this will be great. I'll just buff its health up to like 30.
Yep.
It'll be great. Use balance on it, and it didn't pan out. It's the long and short of it.
I don't want to admit, but I had Tech Knight in the Dancer deck when I was trying it.
I did too, honestly, and Tech Knight is. That's when I realized, man, I'm using Tech Knight instead of Dancer as my buff host.
And Tech Knight is like a whole, isn't it 3 mana? Or
Tech Knight is 3 mana. It's a 6/7, I want to say.
It is
Or
a 6/7. It's on
human.
the stream at the moment.
And so yes, it's like the card that is like, I have to pay resources to heal it, and it costs
The unlimited card from the neutral faction is better than you at your own job.
Yeah.
This is not a good sign.
Yeah.
So also getting a bit of a stat buff, just to kind of, allow it to not, actually block. Even you don't necessarily want to. It's still not going to be a humongous body, but because you can't make it too large now that it kind of when it swaps over against flying. Don't want to be chunking in for 20, but you can do that more easily now. If you are buffing it with chefs or whatever. And this is kind of, again, part of looking at DoD's kind of 2, 3, and 4 drops, and we want to keep that kind of like that play style of like the early defense and grinding out with even morale or kind of evasion, but then making sure that early defense is actually possible.
Yeah, honestly, it seems fine. It may find a home, especially if Dodd finds like more aggressive decks, or more aggressive purity pairings where it wants to actually deal damage. Like a flying attack for 14 or more is nice. But I don't think it's like meta defining. yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that faction pairing has been interesting to design for, because it's like they just do such opposite things a lot of the time.
Honestly, like there was a bug at one point where Strength of Unity was resolving in the middle of the turns. Like as you were losing units, it was just redistributing the stats, and it did so much to make that a viable deck. I was shocked by how far.
I actually went with one of Mew's suggestions from ages ago. Is giving it preemptive. Strength of Unity. Give Strength of Unity preemptive.
Yeah, that helps quite a bit. It makes it like 50% less predictable.
Well, it's a big buff because you can eat MDs every turn, which helps a lot. So if you're trying to push through with Paladins, you can sacrifice your entire board and let it just accumulate on the Paladin.
It's like, yes, please, kill all my... Play the mass death, get hit for 40, yeah.
Well, they're gonna get hit anyways, but like it still is better than letting the creatures through, because some of the stats will get diverted to the command zone, but...
Well, no, because like the way it works, this is what I'm talking about. Like the way it works right now, all your guys die, the Paladin hits him for 6, and then he gets all the buffs at the end of the turn, and it's kind of useless.
But it's not true, though, because then you have a giant Paladin and you salvage the stats.
I guess, and then he gets like CTA'd or kidnapped or whatever.
Yeah, he might be removed later, but
You know,
at least for
hubris
buff
or-
I
worked.
mean, it would be very easy for us to make it not.
Oh, I know it wasn't. It was
No,
accidentally
wait.
happening. I felt sad reporting it. I could have said
No,
nothing.
what
I
on
would
the
have
card?
known.
What on the card says it happened at the end of turn? Even? Oh, at the end of turn. Oh yeah, okay.
It really
it's
should
literally
not
on the
result.
card, I think.
It is kind of OP. Like it's kind
It's
of
pretty
wild.
busted because you just run a lot of weenies and just
Yeah,
suicide them, and everything gets 1/1. Everything gets 1/1. Everything gets 1/1.
But then
and
you
every
have
time
to
a weenie
remember,
dies.
you have Flame Dawn and Dodd in your deck. And it's the
Yeah.
only reward for doing that.
Is it
There
called
So
will
like
be-
the
there will
sheer
be-
awfulness
There
of
will
the
be
deck.
more multi-faction cards in the pipeline. Yeah,
Is it called Strength
will.
of Unity? I can't find it in my stuff.
I'll
They're kind of like
post it.
by design bad. Like the one wants to fully defend, the one wants to fully attack. Like their whole deck concept
Yeah.
just is that we don't work well together.
No,
Oh, it's
I mean,
called the
so
Strength.
yeah. So one
It
thing
also
that
did
like
when it resolved mid-turn have this cool thing where you could like have all your defenders die and lend their stats to your attackers to attack with, or vice versa depending on your initiative.
yeah. So we're getting kind of a bit more into like designer card territory, but like you know, like attacking alone is a potential like way you could look at them, so that you can be both aggressive and defensive with minimal, investment, or like caring about the number of characters like an attack buff for the number of characters you have in your defense zone, so you can attack with one giant thing. There are synergies to be found, but yes, it is certainly one of the harder factions to create synergies for, and it's not supported by the current card set, for sure.
I will say though, in the vein of just trying to make bad cards like slightly more playable, slapping preemptive on it isn't gonna hurt it, and it's not gonna
Yeah,
break the
yeah.
game.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, with it. Okay, so let's just. How long have we been going on for now? An hour. Yeah, there were some. Yeah, there are a couple of changes to some intrigue cards as well planned. Most of them are ones that haven't been released yet, but we're actually probably going to add Vigilance to Color's Companion because, yeah, good suggestion. That tested that out and it's like, yeah, this makes it feel much nicer. Especially because that deck generally wants to be more defensive to actually survive to playing Color. Yeah, there are a couple of like potential, potential other like cards that could be looked at in Warpath, but like we've done a lot of buffs to Warpath recently, so definitely much lower priority. Kills by leaping and like Brown Bear. I like two that I was looking at, but certainly much lower.
I found a
priority.
use for Brown Bear. I made a deck of all bears, and then I made bear puns with
Yeah,
people.
but
It's
see,
unbearable.
all the other bears have enraged, so Brown Bear should have enraged. Anyway,
That'd be a cool buff for Brown Bear.
yeah,
Should
I
do
mean, like,
something.
honestly, I want to add enraged on more cards because I like mana sinks and
Oh.
as well.
On the note of some recent buffs, I do think things may have gone too far with the Goliath. 25-25 for 7 is a lot.
What's the
Yeah.
full name of the Goliath card?
Lumbering Goliath? No.
Yes.
It's a 7-cost one.
Yep,
Yeah.
found it.
I'd have to
Lumbering.
start up the game to check.
Yes,
I got it.
Lumbering Goliath.
I found it.
Okay.
I do think that may have been a bit too much, giving it that extra 7/7 worth of stats.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, okay. We'll definitely review that. Yeah, like, long term. Yeah, long term, we are looking to just kind of give cards that are 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 costs kind of better stats. But there's definitely possibility of overshooting, for sure. So good to bring that up. Maybe. And did you find the same? Was it just Lumbering Goliath that felt overtuned, or was it?
Well, Tusk Behemoth is huge, but Tusk Behemoth hits at a more tempo critical point, where Lumbering Goliath is at the point of the game where you can just drop things that they have to respond or die. And it's so much cheaper than the other creatures like it that it's pretty significant. So, like, compared to Hunted Dragon, it's bigger, doesn't spawn a removal spell. And I would like to point out Hunted Dragon back in Oppression was a fairly viable card, just because it could do such a cheeky hit for set 20.
Yeah.
Lumbering Goliath has none of the downsides, and losing flying and unstoppable are fairly minor.
I mean, losing flying is... I don't know.
It would
Well,
matter
it's
more
just-
for other factions. It matters a lot less for Warpath, who's like running a Skara or some other unstoppable thing, or just giving the Lumbering unstoppable, and now it's clearing blockers for all its other units. Like, sometimes it's better.
That's
not
exactly
to
the
fly.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, because of keyword gifting, and it's quite feasible to have Lumbering act as your unstoppable creature.
Yeah, and Hunted Dragon is like shitload more morale, and has the removal spell, and
like Hunted Dragon's not the best creature anymore, but it was quite good back in the day.
Yep. I mean, one possible thing for tone back Lumbering Goliath and then we could make it single purity, because a lot of the there's a big gloss of 7 cost double purity cards in Warpath. Just for deck building, if you're ever trying to splash Warpath, it's this is kind of sad. Where are all the kind of things that I want to use?
There is some merit to keeping it at 2p. Historically, most of the larger creatures in general have been restricted to 2p. So if you want those high-end drops, you have to go 2p. It's a big reason why we haven't seen many successful rainbow decks in Infinity Wars. Because as much as we do complain about bad high-end creatures, and they are, you do still need a few of them just to curve out effectively.
Yes. Actually, was there any other? Yes, I guess the other, other one was, kills by leaping is an interesting, it has an interesting ability, but has always been so understated.
I want to say he got nerfed at one point, even though no one was using him. He used to have a 16 attack, and they were like, too much. No one's playing it.
That's right. He used to be a 16-12.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
And no one used him.
Well, my recommendation was to make it a 16-12. So
Yeah, back in the day, it used to be. It is the most random change because it was bad, and it's probably and just out of the blue one day, it got hit with the nerf ban.
Yeah, because
I forget. I think that's the Yodo era.
It's like it leaped in the way or something.
Yeah,
If
if it was single purity, I could think maybe understand, but it's also a double purity cut, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's such a meh effect, and yeah, that was hilarious. Actually, now that what if Fred brought that up?
Is there so I was asking this a while ago, but is there a comprehensive list of patch note
I found a halfway comprehensive one buried in the Steam patch notes section on the Infinity Wars game, and there's some on the forums, and then it just goes dark at the beginning and the end, but the middle is somewhat documented.
Yeah, but I mainly want to know the bloody Yodo changes that all got reverted.
None of those are documented. It's absolutely.
Those were all on the old forms. If they're not there, they're gone.
Well, I mean, there is the Wayback Machine, which I use to look at the forums every now and then when I need something specific. But
I think Yodo had 2 major patches, which was the draft bounce pass change and the legendary change. It's hard to say which ones were.
I found the legendary change patch notes because there's an imager
Like,
The legendary one is one of the worst patches ever because of the mechborn buff. That was pretty rough. What bothered me so much too is everybody was getting these awesome overpowered legendaries, and then Asian Coil Flamebringer, the dumpster fire bat he was just sitting there. And here, we'll give him some immolate he can't even use. Like, there you go. Have fun,
Yes.
Flame Dawn.
yeah, yeah. Flamebringer is been on the list for a while.
I would honestly not buff him. He was pretty bad, but because of Fire Ascension, he's a menace.
Yeah, he's actually really good all of a sudden.
Yeah, this is actually in the same boat. This used to be an absolute joke, and they're still very all in. But with Fire Ascension, this is once again a menace to society. Like I was just messing around with some AI, so it's not the most serious. But like hitting for 70 with this was happening.
Nice.
I was shocked at how many unviable cards Fiery Ascension lets you play. Like,
Oh, yes.
Tulio was doing things.
Fire Ascension is one hell of a card.
Yes. I mean, especially because it's so cheap, right? Like, like if it's, if the hand buffs are delayed, and it's like, okay, well, if I can't play it till like turn 6 or whatever, it's, it gets a lot more awkward early on. But the fact that you can just set it up on an early turn, and then your opponent has to worry about it for the rest of the game.
Absolutely. It's a big benefit over, say, Herald of the Dawn. And Herald of the Dawn was decent, honestly, but another big perk for Fire Ascension is it gives you the whole package. It gives you flying, it gives you charge, it gives you the attack pump, which is things, well, this and Coil can't make use of the charge, but that flying and attack pump is so big for creatures like that. And they just get to come out safely with those things on curve, as opposed to needing to delay to cast like higher. Well, they can't even take higher calling, but higher calling would be the closest equivalent to.
So, yeah, in those like quick fire balance notes, I mentioned like one of the only nerfs that we've been looking at is like morale cost increase for mini splitter to the light. Whatever it's called. Are there any other cards that you would like to see morale adjustments? Thinking like Flame Dawn Commando, maybe like, is there any other Cult of Roar? Like
One of many. It's
One of
the
many.
only unlimited card with no reason to exist. I feel like he should get one morale cost reduction.
Can we give
Still, no one will play him.
Varroa
Mainly because why do we care that we lost one of many? It's like, oh no, we lost one of them. If only we had a whole bunch.
They're all precious. Haven't you seen the, Remember the Fallen? It's like holding up one of many, right?
I honestly wouldn't mind seeing Timmy Bot's morale cost go up too.
Yeah, I mean,
Historically,
I've just considered like making a 2/2.
because GIs historically had moderately high morale costs,
Yes.
and in Rebellion they got Timmy Bot and Splitter Light, which were both huge tempo play. Well, Timmy Bot just a general value play, but Splitter Light's a big tempo play. And normally tempo plays do punish you on morale, and Splitter Light just was not doing that in any capacity.
How much would support drone be destroyed if it couldn't target itself?
It would be dead as a commander, which is a pretty substantial nerf to GI. It's already, like, it does have competitors now in Kinetically Overloaded Drone and Timmy Bot, but it would definitely kill it as a commander. Main deck, I don't think it would be too big of a nerf, but yeah, it would be dead as a commander.
Yeah, basically it's like if GI is starting to get crazy, it is something in the back pocket, but
With
not
the
something.
Gal,
Yeah, I think if you did that, they'd end up going back to the infected drone or adaptive construct in command.
I think I'd probably play Kinetically Overloaded Drone or Timmy Bot.
That drone is the overloaded drone is
The
definitely
Kinetically
a better
Overloaded
option.
Drone buff
Yeah.
of +2/+1 actually does quite a bit. It gets on curve pretty quickly now, and yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Timmy Bot's just very safe because it gets you a card when it eventually dies. which GI does love because they run a little lean on cards.
Indeed. Okay. Anyway, that was kind of the main list of cards I had to discuss. But yeah, if anyone wants to raise any, actually, okay, here's another like quick list of like things I don't have changes for, but definitely like known to be weak. Ghost Knight has very weird stats and an ability that's like, is there a use for its ability? Is right basically what.
Well, it stops them. So if you're playing against COV, Ghost Knight's ability is actually useful because it's impossible to remove it with single target removal.
I want to say
back when I was doing the faction RP with Ben and I was using Ghost Knights, and I thought, yeah, I'll throw some in a deck in. It's not a good card, but it's not a worthless card either. It's a very strange ability, but it's useful all the same.
Yeah, there's also some weird jank you can set up with it, with stuff like Skara, where it's like you have to sacrifice a unit, so you pick him, but then he leaves the game and he comes back and you pick him again next turn.
Yeah, that's true.
So he could be an infinite Nero activation in theory.
I think Nero needs you to actually kill it to work.
Yeah, Nero says if you do, or yeah.
But like Vasir or
so he can't even die correctly.
Skara or.
Oh yeah, there you go. Use the Overseer's Flame Dawn. Yeah, you remove stuff from the game to activate the new Purge, the Unworthy. You got there. Unfazed. Is it? This is the you can't take morale damage this turn in Flame Dawn.
I've never seen it played. I think Flame Dawn just doesn't care.
Yeah.
If they're worried about morale, they've already if you're worried about morale, they've already lost. And another issue too is you have to predict something like an MD for it to be worthwhile. And if you're calling a mass death, you're gonna pull your guys back.
Yeah,
So
I want to say I had one in the side deck of an Enya deck, and then I never put it in the main deck. So that's about the usefulness of it.
Perfect.
it was Tamerlane's profile icon in the forums. That's what I remember most about it. Nice art.
Yeah. Here we go. So, immolation drone. We're gonna like just give it a little stat increase and increase the damage to 2 rather than 1. Something we're potentially looking at. Don't want to buff it too much because it is a hybrid card. But it is currently.
I think it's dual
very
purity.
miserable. Pardon?
I think it's dual purity.
It is, yes.
It's really, really bad.
It's dual purity? No, it's hybrid, isn't it? It's an ore.
I think.
I think this might be a case where in game it's hybrid right now because it's so bad that I forgot it existed to report it.
Nah, on the wiki it says it's an ore.
Maybe it is. I could just swear that
It is really bad.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean it has the stats of a 1-drop. Like it's yeah.
Yeah,
You could make it a 1-drop and it probably still wouldn't even be overpowered.
You tempt
There's
me.
several 1-drops that trade positive with it.
Like, okay, it could be a 1-drop, or I could give it the stats of its actual curve. Yeah, I mean, either of those I could see working out.
If you make it a 4/4 that just does its attack damage to everything, that means that it could potentially be a good target to buff.
You mean 2/4? Oh.
No, make it a 4/4 and
No,
have its damage.
4 damage to everything is too much. It's way too much.
If you're
on
paying
the
4
attack.
costs for it, it could potentially be something.
No, it comes out of the command zone and just like wipes.
Right, good point. Alright.
Oh, you're right. It is.
Vengeful Warrior? Talk to me about this card. It's as bad as it looks, right?
Oh yeah,
Refresh on which one Vengeful Warrior.
that's
That's
the
the
human
three-
that turns into an undead with bloodthirst, but with vigilance.
So it's a
It's now on the
2/6
stream.
vigilance for free. That if it was dealt damage and survives, it transforms into an 8/4 with Bloodthirst.
I think he was one of my F tiers on my tier list, and there's only like 4 or 5 of those.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is that he has to survive, and he's a freaking 2/6. Like,
Yeah, he was.
I'd like to point out, even though transformation's bad.
I built an Enya deck that used every card that had undead in it. He's the only undead I cut. He's that bad. He gets cut from the joke Enya undead deck.
okay.
If you made him, like, he'd still be bad even if you just threw him in and changed him to be like Infected Devil, where it just always transforms, because it transforms weak if his base body's weak.
Yeah.
Like, if you compare him to Infected Devil, he's just... And Infected Devil's not a good card to compare to, honestly, even because it's so overpowered, but, like, Infected Monk.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, something to take a look at. It's, yeah. I'll have to take a look at what else you put as F tier. I've got the link to your tier list somewhere. But it only has like 3 factions, I think.
I think I did GI Flame Dawn and DoD. I didn't think anyone was ever going to read it because the game kind of died, so I lost motivation to work on it. So we're never... I could, you know...
How have many people here played Profane Critter? I was potentially looking at reducing its attack a
I have
little.
not seen it used yet.
Okay.
It seems
it's
really good.
Real enough, I haven't been enticed into using it.
Okay, because I was just like, wait, this is 13 attack for free, and
I think the way to use it is in command next to like
And just suicide it?
name. No, the guy who gives everybody +1/+1, so that you can get it out of bolt range like immediately. Or like they'll have to pick if they're gonna bolt the 0/4 or it, like if they're turn 1 bolting, you know. I don't know. It seems like it's got a spot somewhere, but having 4 health at 3 cost is a little sketchy.
Yeah, well, I mean that's deliberately kind of it is supposed to be a bit of a glass cannon, just you know, yeah, wanted to just see how people have been using it, if it's kind of been having too much attack, because there's not really any other like 13 attack 3 cost. Well, Kali.
Rapier Fanatic.
Yeah, Rapier Fanatic is actually suicides itself. I like Rapier Fanatic.
We did get an interesting idea from Admiral Obvious in the chat, by the way, if you want to quickly take a look at that one in the Discord chat, sorry.
Unfight's never used. It's weird. I'm weird by like immolation drone.
It's talking about specifically Vengeful Warrior.
Oh, sorry.
Basically, give it deadly, but only if it survived combat, like retroactive deadly.
You could just straight up give it deadly, and that might be good.
Yeah, I mean, like, so DoD currently has deadly in the form of the Spirit of the Ancient Guardian. Spirit of the Ancient Guardians.
A lower cost non-flying.
Is deadly vigilance something you would like to see more in DoD?
It's fairly on flavor, and it's an effect they could certainly make good use of. I honestly like seeing deadly effects and stuff. Like, I like proper card removal, the kill effects, because it makes things that are made to work against hard removal, the shields, the paladin effects, stuff like that, have value.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if they do, it should probably have less than 6 defense, or 6 defense or less, rather.
Yeah, you could probably turn it into like a 1/4 at that point, and
yeah,
maybe a 3/4, so that way it could still power through a Peaceful Garden or something. But yeah.
Okay. Something to consider. Yeah, because like, I don't know how much how much people want. You know, like, but I really want the zombie in blood. I don't know why it gets blood first or anything, but yeah. Anyway. Like Bloodthirst is weird and like makes sense mechanically in DoD because like hey, it's I don't really want to be attacking their fortress. I want to be getting creature combat, using it defensively, but like it doesn't really fit them flavorfully at all.
Well, and also try to trigger that. They have to basically have an aspirant at the end of their attack line, or attack with like one guy.
No, it's awful. It's more just like even if like it triggered every time, like the Bloodthirst is not really impactful.
Well, Bloodthirst 1 is also so small. Like,
so small.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even stacking it with the effects that amplify it, like the wall or half damage, it's just not enough.
It'll help preserve his 4 health.
Genesis Scavenger, I think maybe one of the last cards we'll talk about. Unless
Is that the 5-cost haste with shield?
No, this is the one that like gets little pieces and it heals your fortress if you then take him to the support zone.
I've thrown it onto the stream if you want to take a look.
Oh yeah, he stands out as a particular exception to what you said earlier, that all the healing cards are useful. Not this one.
Yeah.
They're almost all the healing cards.
You're fair enough. Well,
there is a couple bad ones, and Scavenger is among them.
Yeah, I mean it's so actually there's also the thing of like, does Genesis actually have any fortress heal apart from this, and should it? Like,
I think it has one other guy.
No, Field Engineer is faction.
Yeah, there's a factionless one, and I've seen GI run him, and I've never seen them run their own heal card. That's how bad their heal card is.
So I mean, like,
Field Engineer is better, like straight up.
Yeah. Field Engineer is straight up better. So that's like Genesis Scavenger. Like, if we were to keep it in the healing theme, we'll probably simplify it, but then also like have it heal characters rather than, you know, act more like a matriarch or something, right?
If I was moving it in a direction, I'd probably make it heal your fortress when an artificial creature dies. Similar.
Sorry, you cut out there at the end.
I'd probably make it a death trigger on artificial creatures. So you could heal like 5 every time a friendly artificial creature dies. Something like that.
What matchup would you be like again in like a
Flame Dawn? I'd slot that in against Flame Dawn, probably against Overseers. Warpath just kind of one shot. Maybe Sleepers. It depends.
Yeah. 2P
Sleepers I'd consider slotting it in. 3P just kind of one shot you with hit team, so healing's not great in that matchup. Overseers, Solons, Flame Dawn, GI Mirrors. Relief decks that don't one shot you.
Yeah, I mean it definitely fits in with like a lot of the, you know, sacrifice stuff that GI can diddle around with as well. It helps them kind of live long enough to do that if you're doing secluded constructor things or that type of stuff, or just, you know, kind of chomping with lots of split bots.
Yeah. Charges your HP pretty far. Or if you're playing against COV who's winning off burn damage, it could also come into play.
So Admiral's also put forward a card that they want to have potentially looked at being Tiger. Another Genesis card, which is notably not great, apparently.
It's funny because on paper I thought she looked kind of fine. And then you try to use her, she's just like really.
Combat mechanic?
Combat Reconstructor, yeah.
Yeah, the Tiger Combat Reconstructor, the 2-cost 3/3.
What's it?
Whenever an artificial character you control in the same zone as Taiga dies, all other characters you control in that zone gain +1/+1.
Yeah, so she got nerfed to care about the same zone. Because, wasn't Taiga like one of the strongest?
She was at one point. No matter where they died, every robot everywhere got the +1/+1, and regardless of where she was. And then she got added, so she has to be in the zone with the thing that died, and then only the buff gets applied to the things in the zone. And it's like both of them together feels like a lot. You have to like.
Yeah, one or the other would be fine. I don't think both is necessary.
I'd make her have to stay in the zone. Like, she's so cheap. Like, if she triggers once, she's worth the cost. it's
But
Yeah.
I also haven't seen like she's probably okay. I wouldn't.
she's a
I
cost work, man.
no, I know, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
scary to touch her, but she feels, I don't know, strangely underwhelming.
It's 2 cost card.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not even suggesting we undo one of those two. I'm just saying, as she stands.
I don't know. Like there is still use cases if you're doing like an unending drone deck.
I think mainly like I think what I would change with her is I would let her receive her own +1/+1 buffs.
That'd probably help a lot. So she
That-
just
that-
So
doesn't
it's not just like a
grind down.
3/3 body that gets slapped at the back or gets caught in every heat wave and shit.
I mean, I don't mind that.
That's pretty
I'll-
reasonable.
Yeah, it's like she is a card that I am kind of scared to touch. She is quite the she has quite the effect for how cheap she is.
Well, she was even better with Death Blast before she got nerfed in the original.
Yeah.
It-
Yeah,
it-
like
it
she
was
was
gross.
nerfed in the original, was still really, really good, and then we nerfed her again. And
Oh no, you brought her back to. You guys actually released her unnerfed for a while.
oh yes, yes.
And that was the flavor of the month meta that week.
Woohoo!
We've had
Yeah.
some fun
Oh,
flavor
I-
of the month meta.
Also,
Yeah,
I
this
think
was
Agent
fun
Coil is the Overseer's Agent Coil is still in its nerf state. Still 6 cost, I think.
It was pretty broken at 4 cost. Do you really want
Yes.
to bring it back?
God.
No, I do not. If anything, I'd leave it at 6 cost and give it like a minus stat buff.
I will play it at a 6 cost. It feels fine.
Yeah.
It's a flying 10/10 that kills everything it touches. I mean,
Yeah,
what's not to like?
it's a 10/10 deadly, like that can transform into a dragon. It's fine. I don't know. Anyway, I think we'll wrap up. So yeah, you're probably gonna see a bunch of the balance changes that were discussed in not this meeting but the previous meeting coming in the next patch. Some of the ones from this meeting might sneak in through, but really depends on what our timeline is like. Because we're obviously focusing on the UI rework at the moment, which is coming up. Jason, have you really released anything about that, or how much am I allowed to say?
I don't think so. I'm happy to clarify that later on today, though, just to be safe.
Okay. Anyway, it's very exciting. Lots of big menu changes coming. We'll have more information soon. Thank you all for joining today. If you have any other things, cards that you want to talk about, either next meeting or just later on, I'm usually pretty active in the balance and suggestions channel, so put it there.
And also that same thing goes for anybody watching this VOD from the Patreon. Feel free to jump into the balance and suggestions changes if there's anything that we talked about here that you have any specific opinions, thoughts, or ideas on. Always happy to hear that extra feedback. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and of course to Mew and What If Red for showing up and joining us in the stage. I'm not sure if we're going to keep doing the stage thing. I think we might just go back to the normal voice room. It seems like a weird additional complication that doesn't seem to have a whole lot of benefit to it yet. So we'll table that for now and go back to doing just normal voices in the meantime, I think.
You're the one who runs them, so whatever you think.
Yep. That's all good. I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you.